everybody, this is Maureen Wong with mycasestudies.blogspot.com. Today I'm going to be making this card for you, and I don't know if it's a new technique or not, but we'll see. I don't have a name for it or anything, but why don't you watch the video and you can let me know if you've seen other people do it, and if not, maybe I'll try and come up with a name for it. So let's get started. Before I get started, actually I wanted to go really quickly through some of the materials that I used. First are the stamp sets, and they're both from Altenew. This one is called Peony Bouquet, and then this one is called Painted Sentiments. And of course I'm using my mini MISTI and Color Burst powders, not that one. I'm using these Color Burst powders. And then, because I forgot to mention it in the video, I'm using plain white cardstock. I'm using a water technique, but I didn't feel the need to use watercolor cardstock. So this is just a plain heavyweight white cardstock, and it takes it really nicely. You're not super saturating it or anything, so it's not a problem, and you don't need watercolor cardstock for it. So now let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get the outline version of the stamp, and I'm going to get my guide. This is a gridded template in the A2 size, and I'm going to figure out where on my card I'm going to want that image. So I'm going to put that right there, and this is my thirds guide, and I'm putting it right over those 2/3, and then I'm going to have my sentiment down here. And if you want, you can actually place your sentiment to see, okay, I'm going to want my sentiment here, and I'm going to want my flower here. And then when I pick up my flower, I'm going to actually take out my sentiment because I'm not using that right now. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is take that out, and I've got a piece of the gridded paper here, and I've got that shoved all the way into the top corner, and I'm holding it down with my magnets. And then what I'm going to do is take my ink. Oh, okay, there was something under there. That's better. Okay, and I'm going to ink that up, and it doesn't have to be perfect because this is just to see where that outline is. And the reason why I'm doing this is because with these stamps, for me, using the detail one, it's hard if I just stamp the solid and then try and line up where the detail goes. So it's easier to line them all up with the outline, and that's why I'm using the outline as a guide. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take that off. The first thing I'm going to use is the big solid one, and I'm going to line that up with my outline stamp, and then I'm going to pick that up, and it doesn't matter if that paper moves because I know that all I have to do is remove the magnets and push it back into that top corner, and it's going to be perfect. Okay, so now that I have my stamp placed, it's photopolymer, so it's sticky, so the powders are going to stick right to it, and I'm using the Color Burst in lemon yellow and turquoise. And I'm going to put the yellow on first. And I'm just using a stencil brush to move it around. You don't need a stencil brush. You can just use any kind of paint brush, even a makeup brush, or anything you want to use. I just don't want to move it around with my fingers because then I'm going to get my hands really dirty. And when I pick up my cardstock to put it into my MISTI, then I'm going to have a mess on my cardstock. So I'm just putting a little bit of that turquoise in a couple of spots, and I'm going to rub that in. And the point is, I don't want to make this just covered, like a thick layer of powder. I want a kind of a thin layer, so that when I spritz, it has a little chance to blend a little, and it's not just going to be really huge solid color. So then what I'm going to do is take my spritzer bottle, and I'm going to test it off to the side to make sure I've got a nice fine mist, and then I'm going to spray it onto my stamp. And I don't want to do too much because then I'll get a big blob, but I want to do enough that it kind of melds a little bit and gives me a nice finished look. But I'm going to show you something that you can do in case it doesn't come out exactly how you want it on the first try. The beauty of the MISTI is that you can actually try again. So if I say, well, I didn't get enough water on those areas, I'm going to spray just a little bit more on those areas. And actually that's not the right areas because this is the mirror image. And so I'm just going to come back in and add a little bit of water, and it will mix and meld a little bit more so it's not so dotty like you just had dry powder going onto your paper. And then what I'm going to do is set that aside, and then you can actually hit this with your heat gun, and I probably will do that in just a minute. But first what I'm going to do is clean up my MISTI. I'm going to take this stamp off because I'm done with the background. I want to put my detail stamp in now, and you don't have to do a really good job of cleaning this stamp off now. You can always set that aside and do it later. But I want to make sure that the cover of my MISTI is dry so that my detail stamp will stick to it. And so I've got my detail stamp, and again I'm going to push my paper up into that corner to make sure that it is exactly where I want it. And then I'm going to go ahead and line this up according to the outline. And then I'm going to make sure that's dry and pick that up with the cover of the MISTI. And then I'm going to get my piece that I did earlier and hit it with my heat tool. Okay. And I'm going to use my magnets to hold that down. Then what I'm going to do is get my VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm going to ink up my detail stamp really well. And this actually works better on a darker background, so that's why I didn't use the really light, a lot of the yellow. I mean, I did, but it blended with the turquoise, which is a darker color. I tried doing this technique with a lighter background, and the black just looked way too harsh against it. So if you're going to do this with the black detailing, I would suggest you use darker colors for the background. And there you go. There's that detail, and you can see how cool the background of the flower looks because of the powders. So how I'm going to finish this off is just add a sentiment onto the bottom. So let me just clean that off a little bit. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then what I'm going to do is put my card back in, and I'm going to, actually I don't need that, I'm going to use my grid, and I'm going to place my sentiment where I want it, and there, like that. And then I'm going to pick that up with the cover of my MISTI. And then I'm just going to stamp in VersaFine Onyx Black again, because it matches the detail of the image. The other thing you could do is you could come back in with gold embossing powder and then do your sentiment in gold, and that would be really nice too. So there's my sentiment. Be your own kind of beautiful. And it didn't actually come out perfectly dark and everything like I like it, so because it's the MISTI, I'm just going to re-ink that back up and press it down again. And that is going to stamp in exactly the same place again because it's the MISTI. And that is exactly how I want it. Now I'm going to finish off my card. Okay, and to finish it off, I just die cut out that panel with a die, and then I mounted it onto a white top folding A2 card base, and that is my card for today. I hope you like it, and thank you very much for watching.